So, yeah, so it's great to have you here. I'm Jennifer, and I run Jennifer Christine or JC Wellness Consulting. And my background is I'm a manual osteopath, a massage therapist. I do therapeutic yoga, and I'm a nutrition coach. And I am currently working on my hormones. What is that? Hormone balancing specialty through functional medicine, which is food. So that's kind of about me. I've been in the industry for over 10 years, owned my own practice for most of them, traveled the world kind of studying holistic health. I'm just a bit of an anatomy junkie, I guess you could say. And that's kind of me. So yeah, just in case you don't think I just Googled all of this. Some of it I did Google, but not all of it. If you want to stay muted, that's fine. And then, yeah, you'll definitely have an opportunity to ask should you want to. Okay, so get the sweater off. Oh my goodness, I'm getting too hot. Okay. So today's agenda, the main things we're going to be looking at is why does sugar affect your health so much? The liver on sugar, sugar by any other name is still sugar, misleading marketing controlled by hormones, and that's usually a sugar problem, and hormonal issues and inflammation. And then at the end, I do finish with some suggestions for basically hacks or in other lives, it's been maybe treatments, but as this is more of a dietary one, it's definitely less of a treatment and more of dietary suggestions. Okay, so sugar, I mean, yes, sugar cane is natural, but unfortunately, a lot of the ways we consume it is not natural. And one of the things I hear from clients so often when they say, well, it's natural, so as long as it's in moderation. That's true, but I mean, mercury and arsenic are also natural. So we do want to have some awareness of maybe what we're consuming, and we will get into the hormones and why sugar tricks our brain. So understanding sugar, we will go over the different forms and what they are. The bottom line is not all sugar is created equal. Sugar is a carbohydrate. So if I did have a stress call, I believe it was about 3 weeks ago, when our nervous system is activated, we pull energy from glucose storage, there's my first spelling mistake, not fat cells. So this will come full cycle. So just in one of the previous sessions for stress, if you had a heightened nervous system and you were working in your fight or flight and not your rest and digest nervous system, so what that means is that we would get energy or sugar crashes and crave sugar and find ways that we would fill up that fast acting energy, which is simple carbs and sugar form, to fuel us through the day. And we will get into some hormonal issues. And basically, this has a really toxic effect on our cortisol levels as well. Sugar is one of the main indicators for cardiovascular disease. There isn't a specific study. They don't really understand why, but they do know that there is a direct causation, meaning the link is clear, but the science of it is not. So aside from cardiovascular disease, one of the main links is it actually is hormonal, and sugar and hormones is it's really big cycle. When we look at visceral fat or the belly fat around our abdomen, what happens is abdominal fat is a huge indicator of cardiovascular disease, right? And what people don't realize is there is a fat pad within that, within your belly fat, and it actually starts to create its own hormone ecosystem, basically. So this fat cells in that fat pad will create their own hormones. So the science directly behind understanding why sugar and cardiovascular disease are so connected, the why is not completely known. However, it is known that there is a really strong correlation and causation between more of an indirect effect and the cycle that happens from it. So sugar and hormones, excuse me, I'm going to drink. So our bodies are not designed for the amount of sugar we consume. So historically, it was hard to come by, it being sugar. We're designed to eat as much as we were designed to eat as much as we can to store it as fat for survival. So in the past, evolution, we had to work really hard to come across sugar. And typically, if there was sugar in something, so whether that was fruit, sugar cane, whatever it was, that was a really desirable thing. So other animals wanted it. It was dangerous, say, like if you're getting it from bees. There was a lot of risk involved, and people typically had to travel really far. So where I'm going with this is the calorie expenditure to get that sugar in an evolutionary way was a challenge. And we will get into this a bit more, but just a precursor, we're going to talk about how our body does not get full from sucrose. Fructose also, fructose, it's actually the fiber and the other things, the carbohydrates, but not the sugar that fills us up. It's basically why we can drink, say, a liter of pop or a ton of fruit juice, and we don't get that really full feeling. So we are designed as humans for sucrose, fructose, things like that are all types of sugar to not trigger our hormones to say we're full, because evolutionary, our bodies wanted as much sugar as we could get because it was stored as immediate fat, which was better for our survival. Now, I mean, fast forward into today's era, and now it's everywhere and it's hidden in everything. So it's really that evolutionary process has really backfired on us, to be honest. So just looking into hormones and sugar just a little bit deeper here. So insulin, added sugar provides no caloric benefit and are broken down quickly, used as fuel immediately, causing a spike in blood sugars. So this is really going back to that fight or flight system and where we pull the energy stores from. But unfortunately, if we are constantly spiking and crashing our insulin, we do, so here, habitually, this will create insulin resistance, creating difficulty to pull energy from the right source, AKA fat or the long burning fuel. So that's where the crashes come in, blood sugar issues and diabetes, right? Okay, and leptin. So the hormone that communicates when we are full to our brain. On average, we consume 150 more calories per meal if we are consuming sugar. So yeah, so fast food chains asking us if we want to upsize our pop for free. I mean, that's genius of them because it doesn't trigger the full hormone. And typically, the more sugar we consume in a meal, the more we will want to eat. And so it's actually, and unfortunately, I wish our society wasn't like this, but it is actually a trick to get people to consume more food. Cortisol. It stresses out our adrenals, causing us to produce more cortisol or inhibiting the reabsorption, resulting in premature aging, anxiety, poor sleep, and visceral fat. Thinking back to the stress session, the sugar is a secondary issue. Heightened central nervous system correlates to the sourcing easy access energy, which is glucose. So this can also be simple carbs. We'll touch on that in a few moments as well. But how we access our energy stores to get through our day can be directly related to how much cortisol is in our body. So why this is important is because typically evolutionary, if cortisol was high in the body, it usually meant we were in famine or we were in a dire situation, and that situation would expend a lot of calories. Typically, if we had heightened cortisol, we were in famine, or we were being basically pursued by something we definitely did not want to meet face to face. So again, fat burning, right? Okay, so jumping into the names of sugar. So sugar by any other name is still, guess what? Sugar. The oses. I call them the oses. So we have glucose, fructose, sucrose, and lactose. Those are really the main ones. And here you can see on the slide, it's fruit and fructose fruit, sucrose table, like so the table sugar, like really the refined sugar, and lactose is the sugar in dairy. And glucose is what our body converts these things into for usable energy stores. And that does include simple carbs. And I didn't mention it anywhere in the slides, but it does include alcohol. Alcohol is converted into ethanol and sugar in our system. So I'm not going to go into the ingredients too much. It's, you know, it's here for you. I do include some websites at the end. I would be happy to email this out to people so that they have some of the resources that I found. I liked the ones I list, I like because they're reader friendly. Sometimes they can get really, really scientific and hard to follow. And these articles, I found they had good information, but they were very, very readable, which is nice. Oh, Alexa just told me one of my parcels came. So this list of ingredients, we are going to get into some actionable steps just a little bit later in the presentation or in the slide. And what you're going to see is this list here is really so that you can recognize the ingredients. So maybe I will include those in an email. Oh, and I'm really glad I remembered to do this, but I do include some resources that I do email out afterwards. And if you're not a part of my Facebook page, for about the next 5 or 6 days, I do post kind of follow-up information, whether it's articles or suggestions, recipes, really whatever goes along with the lives. So I do really suggest to get the most out of this information and for like continued learning in case something didn't land. Make sure that you do like the Facebook page. And if you want to leave your email in the chat, I will add you to the list, to the email list to get this video. And then that way, if you were a little late joining, then you can catch the beginning. But also, I will leave the websites that I did find were helpful and this list of different types of sugar. Yeah. I don't, in case there's any chats, new chats. No. Okay. So there we go. What does inflammation look like? Oh, okay, I think I might have got these out of order. Sorry. Yes. We'll do this one first and then we'll do that one. Okay. So inflammation and sugar. I actually made some notes because this is really important. Sugar is one of the leading causes of inflammation. So it may be, yes, it causes inflammation, but it also causes almost a cascading effect of other things that cause inflammation. And especially if you have a thyroid disorder, I highly recommend looking at your sugar intake because people with thyroid disorders are hands down way more affected than just the average person with sugar. It is quite substantially more serious for those people. So how does sugar create inflammation? So it stimulates the free fatty acids in the liver, so directly increasing muscle and joint inflammation. And some sugars cause more harm than others. I mean, I don't think it's a secret that those would be the more manufactured ones. So anything with corn, you know, the corn syrup, really those syrups, they're condensed sugar, so they are a bit more serious on the sugar and inflammation scale. And what about carbs? So sugar is a carb, but carbohydrates are broken down in the body, in your small intestine, pancreas, and liver, and they're turned into simple sugars. Glucose for high stress people used as energy. This affects insulin, inflammation, and our CNS system. So it all is really a cycle, right? The complex carbs are a different story. So here I write simple carbs are white in color. Typically they are. And the reason that like most natural food is not white. So for it to be white, it does have to go through a chemical process of stripping to get to be that color. This is more like white breads. So like, or yeah, white bread. So that's refined, like the 5-minute rice. So the really simple carbohydrate, sugar, even margarine, things like that. So if it's colorless, most food is not colorless, so it does have to go through a product process of being broken down in order to have that color that it does. Sugar is bad, sure, but it makes me feel better. So I hear this from people all the time, where it's more of a coping mechanism to consume. I do it. I think it's pretty common. I know this stuff and I still do it. Aside from the physical effects, too much is detrimental for our mental health as well. So it's not just our physical health, right? So a 60% increase in anxiety. So sugar crashes, right? So that sugar drop in the middle of the day usually affects our mental health. We maybe don't handle things, stress as well, increased risk for developing depression and withdrawal symptoms. I mean, sugar is really addictive. It's made to be addictive. It's manufactured for consumption. Even alcohol, right? Like alcoholism for people who are really addicted to any kind of booze. I mean, booze is converted in the body as sugar. So yeah, if quite often that's why if someone has stopped drinking and they were a big drinker, they really will start to crave sugar and sweets. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Whatever people's life paths are, I mean, definitely do what's right for you. But just keep in mind that if you are craving that sugar, just to watch those cycles. If someone, watching this video, if that's ever something they come up against, or, if they have any advice for someone else. So decreased ability to deal with stress. And that really goes back to those sugar crashes. Maybe our brain's not functioning optimally, or, there's exhaustion from using glucose storage and maybe not our fat cells and long burning energy, right? I did include a website down at the bottom that's itty bitty, but it is listed on the last page. So I will email out those websites as well. All right. Oh, right. Okay. So talking about inflammation and how sugar really causes inflammation, it's like, okay, great, inflammation, it causes some joint pain, like what's the big deal? Unfortunately, it goes a lot deeper than that. So I really like this diagram, and this website I did find really helpful to understand chronic inflammation and how that can look. So I did want to include it. This diagram is from this website, just making sure I give all the credit. So bloating, joint pain, belly fat, gas, rosacea, high blood sugars, including, diabetes and some other effects, migraines, acne, constipation, IBS, allergies, um, metabolic syndromes, always tired, can't focus, muscle aches, all these things, right? And then, yeah, brain fog. And brain fog's huge because usually if we are experiencing brain fog and actually a lot of these things, that can be a candida overgrowth in the brain, which is it's a yeast infection, but it actually comes from the yeast feeding on sugars in our body, and if we do go into a sugar detox, candida can make us grumpy as heck. Oh my goodness. So there are some systemic issues that come from consuming too much sugar, and how that, and what our body as an ecosystem, what's happening from that, right? Chronic inflammation, what does that look like? Body pain, skin rashes, excessive mucus production, low energy, and poor digestion. So outside of, like, I'm gonna add in kind of a combination of body pain and skin rashes. I've been practicing in the holistic health field for over 10 years. And let me tell you, it shows up as acne. It shows up as redness on the skin. So yes, rosacea, but also eczema, psoriasis, some really common stuff, shingles. So all that stuff tends to flare up when we have too much heat inside of our own body, right? Um, and body pain. So if you notice, I think we're all familiar with, like, if we sprain our ankle, to look for redness, heat, swelling, things like that. But that still shows up in our body anywhere when we are having an inflammatory reaction. And if it is chronic, it can be. It can present to the point where we think it's normal. So if we have redness or swelling in our body, say something's a part of us is always sore and showing some heat, that is actually internal inflammation. And that's our body saying, please, please pay attention to me. Also, why skin is so important, like even forget rashes, but skin, anything showing up on skin, just keep in mind that skin is the last line of defense for us. So by the time we're getting symptoms to show up in our skin, there would be some serious internal stuff going on. Okay, sorry, I digress. I'm like food and like anatomy, like I get really excited about. So sometimes I can just go like, whoo, off into the wind because I just wish I could like shout it from the rooftop so that people feel better, because like I said, I've been practicing for a long time, and I work in chronic pain and like injury management. And so I work with the same people for over long periods of time. And honestly, I can say that pretty much everything I see is a causation of inflammation. So getting to talk about something like sugar is amazing, because it really can play such an important impact on our long-term health and feeling better and getting, the people that I care about and work with maybe onto a better path and feeling better long-term. So as much as I love the people I work with, my goal is to not see them. So that's why I do these presentations, right? All right, so the usual plug, just so you know, I do have a 5-week inflammation course coming up on April 12th. This session is actually a precursor to go way deeper into sugar and the inflammatory response of carbohydrates. It will be our first session. And that's why I'm plugging it here. This is the intro session that I will send out to the people who have signed up to the course, so that they have a basic understanding, so that we can kind of like dive into labels and understanding how to navigate some of these issues. So in any of my courses, I always work from awareness, understanding, and implementation. And you'll see that in any live presentation, whether it's a paid course or a free presentation. All right, so we'll always work from awareness, understanding, and implementation. Sorry, I've said that like 4 times now. But what that means is we'll talk about the problem and bring some awareness to it. We will work on understanding it. And then at the end, I will always try to give you solutions, right? So it's great to understand a problem, but if there's not understanding for change, or maybe hacks for navigating it. And I do love hacks. I try to keep everything super, super simple, because the simpler it is, the more manageable it is to incorporate those small changes into our life, right? So this is the course. I will post the link or email it if there is any interest. You're more than welcome to chat with me. It's 5 weeks. It's actually 6 weeks, because the last week is just for questions. So anything we're coming out to questions, but the 6th week is just for if there wasn't anything covered or you want more information to more material. That 6th week is really just about the people participating. It is done through my app, which I'm like really excited. I have an app. Like, how cool is that? And yeah, so that's that. I know that we have maybe one person who doesn't have questions, because maybe quite yet. But does anyone else have questions that I can answer at this point? Everyone is muted, so if you want to unmute yourself, yeah, you can unmute yourself or pop it into the chat, whatever you like? I'll give it a second. If there's no questions, I guess we'll keep moving.
I have questions, but I'd rather just save them for the end.
Okay,
So
sure.
that's cool.
Yeah, that's totally fine. All right. So I'll make sure to circle back and grab those questions at the end. Okay, so I might have mixed up my inflammation order slides. I'm sorry, guys. So it's more than just physical. So we are starting to see how much sugar affects the inflammation. So it's where we get our energy, how we manage stress and mood, and the effects on inflammation, which does have wide secondary effects, right? So one big thing to understand about, I'm saying the word sugar a lot, but really it's processed foods. We'll get into understanding some labels very, very shortly here. But once you start to recognize some of these, I call them like trick words, and they're really just, they're misleading people to think that things are sugar-free. And I'm just going to make a note of that because I want to say something, because it's really sugar-free and fat-free. It's worth mentioning. And diet. Okay, and diet, dairy. So I'm just going to use a quick example here. So the effects of inflammation, which has wide-reaching secondary effects. So one really, really good example about this is fat-free dairy products. Okay, so earlier in the presentation, we saw that lactose is actually the sugar that's contained within dairy. Now, the process that has to be done to these products for them to be fat-free basically means they have to pull all the fat out of these products. And what happens is that they have to put sugar back in to bind it, right? So it's not a natural process. I can think of sour cream. So regular sour cream and like fat-free sour cream, they have like totally different textures, and it's really bizarre. If you haven't noticed this, take a look at it next time. And excuse my language, but fat-free is actually just code for chemical shitstorm. And what happens is basically our body does not know how to use these products. It doesn't recognize it. That is really how leaky gut and a ton of inflammatory responses flare up. So just understanding that whenever there's sugar-free, fat-free, typically they pump either more carbs or they change the labeling so that it doesn't have as much sugar, or it is deemed healthy. But just please know that inflammation is quite a serious thing in our society right now, and those diet modified products are actually a really big part of those things. So especially dairy, if it's fat-free, if it's low fat, things like that, what they've done is it's undergone a chemical process, and in order to stabilize the compound and not make it taste horrible, they have pumped it full of sugars. And we will talk about labeling in a second and why it can be really misleading. So if you are, going down, say, a health journey or a weight loss, whatever that is for you, just please keep in mind that whole food is better. Anyways, like I said, I get distracted because I get really excited about this stuff. I guess that's good, right? Like it's just my jam. Okay. So meditation versus medication. Meditation versus medication. I got it. So I know a lot of people don't care for the it's all in the mind approach. And I'm going to be honest, I don't actually really like when people say this stuff to me. When I see a professional and like, have you meditated? I'm like, shut up, I'm here because I hurt. Like, and I mean, so I totally understand, the eye roll that I can't see happening behind the Zoom camera right now. I get it. But where this is coming from is actually from our central nervous system. So I have been in one of those eye rollers myself. Sugar is addictive, and many of us are addicted. It is important to care for our central nervous system and mental health while navigating our dietary changes. If you would like to access, oh yeah, so if you would like to access the stress call from a few weeks ago, again, let me know. I have no issue emailing it to you. But in that call, we actually go through our central nervous system and understanding how to turn off our flight or fight CNS responses so that we are more able to pull the appropriate energy from where we want it in our body that is long acting and much more stable than our glucose storage, right? So again, remember, glucose is one of those oses. And if it's an ose, it's a sugar. Yeah. And I mean, if we can moderate our heightened immune system, or sorry, our heightened nervous system, we just see a ton of effects. And ironically, if there is someone watching, this video, whether it's the live or the recording, keeping in mind that if you say are on a weight loss journey, or say you want to lose visceral fat because say there's some cardiovascular risk or family health issues in your family, genetics, whatever, lifestyle, and you're looking to make some changes, keeping in mind that we will store a lot of we store fat on our abdomen. Sugar it's transported straight to fat, which is then, if we're high in cortisol, which is our heightened CNS, it goes straight onto our belly, which then increases our risk for a ton of diseases and inflammation. Anyways, it's a big cycle is what I'm trying to say. It's a huge cycle. So actually finding time, meditation, I like to be super, super clear. I'm not saying, sit there and go for like however long, or like close your eyes and thought block. It could be writing what you're grateful for, or gardening, or just take whatever you're doing, however you choose to do it, just choosing to be 100% present in that moment. And really, it's just slowing our system down so that our hormones and our adaptations, to reabsorb some of the secondary effects can come into play. People who practice Tai Chi, yoga, Pilates, anything that really incorporates breathing, they actually notice a significant amount of fat loss just from calming that system, just from breathing. And why that is that they're tapping out of those glucose storage, so the fat burning, they're not getting sugar crashes, so they're not craving that junk food during the day, and they're actually pulling long burning fat from the appropriate stores, and they're able to make better decisions because they're feeling better and they're responding to stress so much better. So like I said, meditation versus medication. This is a real thing, and I'm not here to preach like sitting down and meditating for 5 minutes a day, but finding what that means to you, right? Is that a walk? Is it sitting beside a fire in our upcoming, summer season? Whatever that is, just being 100% in it. Or maybe it is yoga. And I mean, I love yoga, and I don't know, if I can look and feel better from, like, I hate to say this, but from doing less, hey, I'm all for it. I'm time poor. So, hey, I'm here for it. So I am going to get into some more of, no, okay. I was going to ask questions, but so we're going to get into more of the action steps are coming now. So some simplified rules, and I put rules in quotations because yes, they're rules, but I mean, I also call it guidelines right here, and both are true, right? Doing the best we can and incorporating this information. So understanding labels are tough for even seasoned pros. So just some guidelines for people to keep in mind so that it's just a little bit easier. So first, labels list ingredients based on the quantity of the ingredient. So that means that whatever the first 3 ingredients are on the label is predominantly what that food is made of. So yeah, I I was hoping I had maybe a label here in front of me, but I don't. But so if it's got an OS in the first three things, that food is predominantly sugar. Just remember, OSs are sugar. So eat food products that you recognize the first ingredients and or they are real food. So basically, if it's a chemical or has an OS or is a syrup, that food is not that food's not being completely honest with you about maybe what is in it. Unless it's Oreos, then they might be being completely honest, or like sugar. If it's like baking sugar, then yeah, I mean, they're being completely honest. But anyways, I digress. So number two, understanding serving size. So to get around labeling and marketing, companies will manipulate the serving size. So you may look at the calories or the carbs or the sugar content. And if you look at the serving, it'll say a half can of soda or pop or a quarter of a cookie. And I will go into this a bit more about why they do that. And it has to do with marketing. So look at the serving size when purchasing foods. If the serving size is misleading, then there's probably a bit more to that story. And if you were to dig into that label, there's actually probably a lot more hidden in there. So low fat, low carbs, zero trans fats. Diet foods are a trick. If you don't want to consume the regular version, the amended is worse. So I have talked about this a little bit. I call them sheeps and sheeps in wolf's clothing. I wish they're wolf in sheep's clothing. What a thing to get wrong, eh? Trying to drive a point home and I have it backwards. So low fat and carb equals more sugar. So like as previously mentioned, to get the calories down, they have to actually pump sugar in, but it's disguised as a different ingredient, or they change the serving size. Zero trans fat. So here's another tricky one. Zero trans fat equals, so what that means is if a label or if a food has 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving, if it has less than 0.5 grams per serving, they can actually get away with saying it's zero trans fat. So it's not zero trans fat. And if they make the serving size like, okay, say it's a cookie, an eighth of a cookie, and it has if a serving size has 0.5 grams or less than in an eighth of a cookie, which it's gonna. So now you're reading the nutrition facts for an eighth of a cookie, which is like, it's absolutely misleading, right? And so that's where it hijacks some of those stuff, or some of that information and knowledge. If you wouldn't consume the regular version, the altered version is worse. Moderation and understanding is important. So really just looking at if there is an alternative. I didn't include it in the slide, but there are some really, really great sugar alternatives. I think there's a fermented rice, which I know sounds really, really bizarre, but it's quite sweet. So if you are cooking, you can add fermented rice. I think it's an oil or a vinegar. Anyways, it will sweeten your recipes. And these other things like sativa is okay, but what's the other one? Aspartame. I always say that word wrong. I don't know, sorry. But that one is an absolute disaster. Your body doesn't even know what to do with it. So if you're consuming a lot of aspartame, you will it will catch up with you or with any of us, with people. I don't want to say you, but with people in a big way. So I mean, if you're really wanting pop, well, honestly, you're better off to just have the regular pop. There's less side effects with regular pop. I mean, the only way that's untrue is if there is a medical condition that prevents you. So like if I hate to say this, but like diabetes, really a diabetic shouldn't be having any of those things. But I can understand. I would do it. I would want something here and there. So I do understand. But just making sure people know that there's more to those stories. There's more to that diet story. So our abdominal cavity isn't just for food, it affects our whole health. My video is not working. But this was a previous video I made quite a while ago. But I just edited it so that it was a bit so that it was just a bit shorter, but still gave maybe some insight. All right. So I will just play this now. Hopefully you can hear it. Oh, well, I guess I'll start it. There we go. So we're gonna have indulged by Sunday in a ton of delicious food, a ton of leftovers, maybe some beverages, just getting that digestion back on track, taking care of ourselves, maybe getting ready to settle back into some normalcy. Question for you. Last time you went to a therapist or a chiropractor, a physiotherapist, whoever, I bet you went in saying, my neck hurts, my back hurts, my shoulders hurt, my knee hurts, I don't walk right. We're talking more about limbs and backs and tension. Our abdomens are so important to our physical health. We're all connected. We can't be the sum of our parts. Example, I'm betting there's someone here watching this video that has some digestive problems. Anyone? If you have digestive problems, how's your left hip? Do you have left glute pain or hip flexor pain? Does it get sore? We can't pick and choose. So if our digestive health or our stomach or the fascia through that left body is affected, it is going to run down deeper into the other areas of our body. Our guts are really responsible for our overall health. Why do we take them for granted? Why do we take our digestive and abdominal system for granted? We need to take better care of our abdomen. I always feel bad when I take this guy apart. I mean, if we look at our guts, look at all the stuff that's on that it touches, right? There's a lot of stuff in there. This is our digestive system. Look at it's up against those hips that we all have so much problems with. I told you I can never get this guy back together. So, he'll be fine. So we're going to summarize. Why is this session so beneficial and what is the real value in it? We don't take good enough care of our abdominal cavity. We just don't. It's neglected. How many massages have you had and how many people have you asked to treat, your internal organs? It is possible and it's actually a good idea. 2, our digestive health and everything that's going on in here will directly relate to your shoulder pain, to your back pain, to your hip pain. Those, it does. It has a direct relation. 3, everything's connected, right? So treating this area will directly help you improve your overall health and well-being. Okay, so that was supposed to be the video that was here. And the reason I included it is because, well, I thought the mannequin falling apart on me was funny, but also because, it's so true. We see physiotherapists and massage therapists and all these different people for our arms and our legs and our necks and our headaches, but we actually completely forget and we don't treat our abdominal cavity. So, I mean, if we're looking at our fascial lines, if we're bloated, if we have that fat pad, if we are carrying excess weight on our abdominals, even for women, if our breasts are really large, I mean, that's changing our whole fascial structure. So the fascia, I'm a big fascial advocate. To explain what it is, I won't go into that right now if you have questions, but I do have a really great video explaining what it is on my Facebook page that I highly encourage you to watch so that maybe this resonates a bit more. But So what happens is that if we have our fascial chains are all wacko, right? So that's going to affect our digestion, say running through our liver, our kidneys, our detox processes, our elimination processes, our digestion, but that actually will have a direct effect on what. So geographical location is also incredibly important for overall health, right? So it really does, they all do feed into each other. So why am I talking about digestion and, our fascial trains in a sugar video and understanding it is because if our abdominal cavity is an absolute mess, it's actually going to show up in our backs and our legs and our hips and our chronic pain threshold. And then, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I see it all the time. We eat because we're stressed and it's this big cycle and it causes inflammation. And then we don't get out and do stuff because we decided to say, have a glass of wine at night instead of taking that walk, which I know all this stuff and I'm massively guilty of doing it as well. So yeah, it just really is this cycle and how we care for one thing is really how we care for all things. And it is a systemic issue. And yeah. Anyways, so I like that video because it takes some heat off me for talking because I talk so much in these presentations. And by the way, thank you for your patience and bearing with me. All right. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with all of this information, I know that I tend to, you thought you were coming for a sugar talk and now I'm like an inflammation and hormones and, your digestion. And it's like, I do get that it is a lot of information, which I'm thrilled that I can deliver, but I'm also empathetic that it can be a lot to digest. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, remember that there are more resources that you can get from me if you would like. So Otherline session recordings that I'm happy to send you. The inflammation course, which is coming up on the 12th that I have previously chatted about, and treatments. But also if you just want to chat and ask me some questions, please reach out. So there's my Facebook page. You can always get me there. My phone number's on there, fire me a text and be like, Jen, you said this, like, this is so-and-so, I saw your question, like, or your chat, like, ask questions. I love answering. I love chatting. If I don't know the answer, I'm actually more than happy to find out for you. And then this is the stress call. I know, I think what a picture I chose, hey? But a lot of the information that we're going into here, it is actually, the stress call really was the precursor to feed into this one. So a lot of this might make a lot more sense if you watch the stress call. Yeah. Okay. So again, post subsequent information at JC Wellness Consulting on Facebook. So whether that's recipes or maybe suggesting different ways to sugar substitutes and how to cook with different things to maybe navigate that a little bit. That's what I would post for the sugar. And yeah, I mean, I'll dig some more stuff out so that I can add a bit more. Okay. So just some discussion. So, okay, yeah, I'm a few minutes behind, but hopefully I can get through this quick so I don't eat your guys' time up. So there's two ways to start creating awareness around sugar. So starting really small and building momentum and understanding, right? Excuse me. So these are like the two big but things I hear whenever I talk to people about sugar. I don't understand labels. Honestly, fair enough. Start with the top 3 ingredients on the list. Avoid anything with top 3 ingredients as OS. And I mean, white foods, right? So if maybe sugar is not listed in white bread as a number 1 ingredient, but labels do substitute carbs and sugars to get around maybe some of the labeling as like natural foods or whatever. I digress, but that's a really good place to start. And if you've decided that you just want to treat and you're not trying to cut out sugar, but you're just moving forward with some awareness, just looking to see for OSAs, in your labels, just get some experience just navigating that, right? So sugars and everything. Yes. And it is, it really is. And it is hard to navigate. So try taking 1 day a week where you eat whole foods. It helps to practice cutting out processed foods. So we're breaking habits and addictions here. Be gentle with yourself. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we're not going to change overnight. So whether it's a weight loss journey or just a health and fitness journey, whether you're just trying to age gracefully or spend more time with your grandkids and be able to keep up with them, just general feeling better, whatever your goal is, just moving forward with self-compassion. It's really easy to beat the heck out of ourselves because we're not doing enough, or, it's hard. And that's the thing, is it is hard. And that's why we're all here, is because this is something that we're fighting with. And I think each one of us could have empathy for people watching this, or, in this call right now. So whole foods. What does a whole food mean? It means it doesn't have a bunch of ingredients. So snacks on my counter, right? I'm a big fan of pre-cut food. I have a post coming out about it this week. I buy pre-cut food. I don't have time. Sometimes I am able to cut it, but honestly, sometimes I'm not. So I keep whole food more accessible than junk food. I have junk food in my house. I do love junk food, but it's on the top shelf. And, my whole food snacks, they're what is in the front of the fridge ready to go. Whole foods are basically 3 ingredients or less. So a stir fry, say that has 5, 10 ingredients, it's still whole food if each ingredient is 1 ingredient. I know it gets messy, but really just trying to consume less processed. And what that also means is if you have an option to choose between a couple different things, instead of navigating labels and calories and blah, 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 just understanding that choosing more whole foods will create a much better reaction within your body, because it's food your body understands. I'm going to plug another course, or not course, live session, but there is one on leaky gut. So all these processed foods and excess sugar, they massively play into leaky gut, which is a huge issue with food sensitivities and allergies. Okay. So a whole food diet is the absolute bum diggity, and it's the way to go. Yeah. So there's that. And again, I'm not saying go on a whole food diet for like the rest of your life. Just pick one day and just do your best that day. Yeah, I mean, accessibility. And the really nice thing about doing it one day at a time and just trying to make those better choices is you create momentum and you get familiar with those choices, and you're building that choice muscle. Okay. Everyone's rooting, like, I think everyone's rooting for everyone to like do better in these choices, because it is hard as heck. It's so hard. So really celebrate those small wins. If you just say you chose an apple over a granola bar, like that's actually a huge win in itself. A granola bar is not actually that clean. I love them and they're great go-tos, but right, an apple is still 1 ingredient. Our body recognizes it. Okay, or nuts, just eat nuts. Anyways, as long as you're not allergic, don't eat them if you're allergic. Okay, so suggestions and solutions. Crowding out. So again, I kind of talked about my hack. If I know I have a busy week coming up, I make a deal with myself that I don't buy coffee out, and I cut a few expenses out from other places to buy the pre-cut salads or the pre-cut fruit, vegetables, or salads. Because if I'm stressed, it's like, no, if I can take that one thing off my plate, I try. Here I'm talking about a plate, but it can also be in your fridge, right? So crowding out and like the less desirable choices. So keeping the whole foods or the foods you want to eat in the front of the fridge more accessible. And if you want to have a treat, like I've made a deal with myself, I'm allowed to eat whatever I want, but I just have to go get it. So that makes it like, sometimes I'm just like too lazy. So I'm like, man, I'll just have my fruit. So just creating accessibility around the choices that you want to make. And then in terms of crowding out, in terms of on the plate. So when filling up your plate, reach for the good stuff first. So take more healthy options. And if you like, again, if you want to go back and get whatever it was that you're negotiating, just take more salad and like vegetables or, lean meats, take them first. And if you still want the other stuff, go back and grab it, but have that negotiation with yourself. But again, going into this one, so greatly increase water intake. So flush it out. If you're quitting sugar or detoxing, the same way an alcoholic would flush their system to get like the sugars and all that stuff out of their system, chances are you aren't like, sorry, we want to flush it, but also chances are you're not hungry, you're thirsty. So we live in a world that is just massively dehydrated. I love dehydrating foods. I love dehydrating drinks. I love coffee. I love everything that is dehydrating. I swear to goodness I do. Because of that, it is really important to increase our water intake because of that, especially coming into the warm seasons here. We don't acclimate to warm weather because our seasons are always changing. If someone is watching this, it's not in Alberta. I'm in Alberta, so that's why I say that. If you're in California, like lucky you, maybe that's not a problem you have. So again, if we're crowding out and then increasing our water intake, if you want to go have that treat or that thing that maybe wasn't on your approved list, if you still want it, go have it. Have a small portion, and yeah. So now this is going to feed into cravings, right? Crowd it out, increase water. If you're still craving it, have it. But here's a hack about cravings. So clean your tongue. We can brush our teeth, but it's not the same as cleaning our tongue. We typically crave what we have most recently eating. So if you had ice cream last night, chances are you'll want more within the next 24 hours. So even though we're brushing our teeth, the residue, so like chemically, it's still like on our taste buds, it's still in our system. So actually there's a few really interesting theories about craving. Learning about cravings was actually quite fascinating. Maybe that should be a talk, because it's so cool how smart our bodies are. And anyways, again, I'm an anatomy geek, so I digress. But so if you want something, have it in moderation, whatever that means to you. But just make sure you clean your tongue so that you're kind of setting yourself up for success and having that clean slate, right? Remembering that sugar is a really addictive substance. It is designed to create a loop. Nestle is not Nestle because people don't eat a ton of their products all the time. There's billions of dollars in this industry. There's, tons of marketing and scientists. We're designed to make these poor choices. Like that system's created for us to kind of follow. So if there are any ways that we can set ourselves up for success and have some little hacks, honestly, support yourself that way. Okay, so gut your pantry and freezer. The reason I say pantry and freezers is because I know where my treats are hidden, and let me tell you, they're not in the fridge. So I think we all know where the treats are. Put them up higher in the back of the fridge or out of the house completely. So, because quite often we'll want what we see first, right? Whatever's directly in our eye line and our hand line, like, whoop, that's actually what we are going to reach for 80% of the time. So just a reorg of that situation. If you have an outdoor freezer, put your ice cream in there, right? Put your treats up high, put them in the hall closet, and with the shoes no one ever wears. I don't know if that's like a sanitary idea. I just made that up, but I don't know. Be safe. Always be safe. But yeah, so you don't have to say no, but we can support ourselves through organization as well. All right. So again, that's it. How am I doing for time? Woo! 11 minutes over. Sometimes I think that's pretty good. Sorry if I went too long for you. I'm so happy that all of you joined in. We will get to questions again. All of the follow-up information, I used to send it through email. It just got to be a lot of work for me. So over the next 5 days, that will go out through my Facebook page. So articles, me just chatting about some healthy, some hacks and easy way to navigate this stuff. I have to say, this has probably been one of the most fun presentations I've gotten to do. I just absolutely love this stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Are there any questions I can answer for anyone?
Hi.
Hi, Kathy. So I'm sorry, I didn't see you had your hand raised.
Oh, that's okay. I'm kind of learning how to do this. I should know how to do this. I teach kids with it all the time, but anyway.
You're on a different side now.
Yeah, yeah. Question, when you're talking about sugar, is stevia a good choice?
Excuse me.
No.
No?
It's not the worst. I will confirm this, but stevia is one of the better ones. It is one of the better alternatives. It is actually related to mint. It is actually related to mint, which does make it much better. I just want to make sure I'm right. Stevia, mint. I'm sure I'm right. If I'm not, I actually will correct it and let you know. But so stevia is one of the better ones. So because it is related to mint, it is actually one of the closest to being an actual plant or natural food that there is out there. Really, aspartame, aspartame. What's the one that's not stevia? It's like this is gonna drive me crazy. I can't think of the name. Anyways, have you ever heard of xylitol? Do you know what that is?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So xylitol and stevia, if you were going to pick two sugar substitutes, I think those are probably the best two. But just keeping in mind that yeah, there's some secondary side effects from them, but I mean, yeah, it's one of the better ones. That was a long answer for that question. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, that's good. Because there's always these different sugars, and like there's agave syrup and all these different sugars. And honestly, I have to try and stay away from the sugar because I am one that's addicted to it, and I struggle with it each and every day.
Yeah.
But
And
sometimes you like to have something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you are struggling with a sugar addiction, I really recommend you looking into a candida overgrowth or looking into maybe working with a candida diet. If you have basically it's a yeast infection in our brain, and so that's where a lot of those really big serious cravings come from. And it's nice to know that it's not you. It is actually I don't know if disease is the right word, but it is a condition, and it's workable. It's very workable. So the other thing to note when it comes to sugar, natural sources of sugar are something to be really aware of because they're deemed healthy. Now, if we were to say, look at honey,
Yeah.
honey has its nutritional value is 2%. So what happens is because people believe it's healthy, they consume more, and then they go back into that cycle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, it does. Because yeah, it was just like when we have the fat-free fad that was going through, and everybody said, oh, it's fat-free, I can eat lots of it.
Right. And you jumped on a little late, but we actually did kind of, I highly encourage you kind of go back and look at when we talked about the fat-free and what that means. Fat-free means more sugar.
Yes, I did hear that.
Mhm. And then there was one other, on my Facebook page, I was actually planning on doing this anyways. I will actually look up and rank the sugars I recommend. Oh, one really good way to sweeten things is to use things like coconut milk. So you can actually find cooking ingredients that are sweeter but not full of sugar. The only thing you have to watch with something like, say, a substitute of, say, coconut milk, and I did this. I actually have to say I learned this from example. Is I was trying to cut out sugar and dairy, and I started making my own coconut milk creamer, and I honestly gained like 15 pounds in a month because I didn't realize everything I was eating and like how high in fat it was. But sorry, this cooking for the substitutes, you can substitute yeah, like coconut milk, things like that. But you just have to watch for things like coconut milk, like wildly high in fat. So it's way more calories. So you could navigate it a little bit that way. I hope that helped. Sean, I know you had a question and you were waiting so patiently.
I guess. Have you heard of Lara bars?
Yeah,
Are you a fan of those?
Lara bars are one of the better ones. I do think Lara bars are better. But really, and this isn't me saying don't eat Lara bars. Um, I personally struggle with getting enough protein in my day. I have a physical job, I'm running around, so I totally get it. I don't recommend, like, say, cutting that all like granola bars or things out, but keeping in mind that if you, like, say you buy a box of Lara bars for the week, if you can have some bars, but also maybe have a boiled egg, or say if you're looking for like the protein, like an egg, or like a handful of, say, salted nuts, things like that. So again, just maybe not cutting, not I'm not suggesting like cut everything out. Lara bars are definitely a healthier option. Just incorporating some whole foods here and there, because anything with binding agents, binding agents is either going to be a form of gluten or sugar, right? And in terms of bars, the only ones that you really have to watch out for, and I mean, aside from, like, I really like the chewy Quaker oat ones, like they're delicious, but like they're a chocolate bar. Like those are straight up a chocolate bar. They're delicious, but I mean, they're not a healthy alternative. So at least they don't pretend to be a healthy alternative. But the one that you do have to watch out for is Cliff bars. I'd have to look at the label again, but Cliff bars are actually notoriously misleading. I do remember that. I can't tell you why. Maybe that'll be my Facebook post, is maybe I'll compare some labels for different bars and kind of chat about what that means, if that's helpful.
Was it erythritol that you were trying to think of as far as sugar substitute?
Yeah, I think it might have been that one. Yeah.
Like monk fruit, I've heard of.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of sugar substitutes, they all have good and bad things about them. Really, if they can be natural, that's better. So that's why I said stevia, I believe, because it's closer to a mint. But the one that you're talking about, it's something gum, xylitol gum. I always get this mixed up. And it is a good one. It's not, I suggest that one more for baking. So if you are a baker, it's a good substitute for baking, or like if you take sugar in your coffee, things like that. Off the top of my head, I believe it can have some risks for people with certain conditions. So that would be important to look into. It is from a tree. It's produced from a type of sap in a tree. So it has gone through its own chemical process, which most of these things have. And it's really the chemical process and our own like man-made meddling into different ingredients that creates havoc for our systems to understand. And I mean, if we were to look into leaky gut, which is a huge repercussion of excess sugar consumption, and leaky gut, that is basically where our intestinal lining is not like this. There's space so cells can get out into our bloodstream, and that's where we get a lot of those big inflammatory or allergic responses. So I mean, celiac is a very severe example of this. But even like sugar substitutes, if they're not something our body recognizes, and we have leaky gut, which I mean, I think a lot of people struggle with, even me. I mean, like, I don't mean like even me, because I know this stuff and it's a challenge. So anything that's man-made, if it sneaks out into our system and it doesn't in our bloodstream and our body doesn't recognize it, yeah, it's gonna create this huge inflammatory response, and then secondary pain. Again, longer answer to a question than I bet you even anticipated. Sorry. But
I'm not familiar with Candida. Can you elaborate on that? And as far as the diet, and you mentioned overgrowth for sugar
Candida?
addiction.
Yeah, so I won't make a post. So I'm just making a note of everything I told you. I would post Cliff versus Laura and sugar sub comparisons. Okay, so there, to make sure I answer everything that I said I'll answer. Candida. So women, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, we all have had to talk about yeast infections and learn about how medications and certain things affect our body. So I don't know if men sometimes get the same education, but so where this can come from is antibiotics. So that include courses of antibiotics we have taken. So Candida is a yeast overgrowth. And what it does is it creates yeast eats the sugar. So the simple sugars in our body. And we actually have like a very visceral, emotional, and physical reaction to the Candida. So it can actually almost overtake our life and our mental well-being. Symptoms of Candida can be like hot, itchy skin, brain fog, swelling of the joints, skin problems, poor sleeping or not sleeping, waking up. So, when you wake up and you just can't get moving and you need like 5 cups of coffee to get started in your day. Those are all really big signs of Candida. And then really strong cravings. So maybe not just for sugar, but for alcohol, simple carbs, breads, anything that our body will convert through to glucose through our liver or simple sugars. A Candida diet, if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to find some articles for you. This is a Candida diet is a bit of a doozy. It's more like an elimination diet, and it is an elimination diet, but you gradually get rid of everything that has any kind of sugar and converts to sugar. So unfortunately, you do get really limited. Like that's fruit, that's simple carbs, eventually complex carbs. And what you're doing is you're basically starving Candida so that you can kill that overgrowth. There are like detoxes and teas and all these different things. I'm not a big fan of detoxes. I don't really believe in them. Our body's designed to detox. That's literally what we are designed to do. Unfortunately, a lot of those detoxes are gimmicks. I have seen one thing work. Maybe I will get a picture of it, Candida spray, with multiple clients, and it's called Candida spray. And the spray is sprayed into your mouth an hour to 30 minutes before you consume food. And it basically blocks, it has something to do with not allowing yeast to absorb sugar. I found this spray with clients years ago, so I would have to look, I'd have to find it and like look the science of it up a bit more. But in terms of not being a gimmick, that's actually probably the only one that I've seen be successful. Whether it works with everyone, I can't say. But it is called Candida spray. I bought it and my clients bought it from a health food store, and it did have a white and red label. So maybe I could find that. And like certain teas will help with candida growth, I believe green tea and things like that. But yeah, so the diet for candida, if you're going to do it in like straight diet, it is a bit intense, because essentially you have to consume no sugars for 6 weeks. And I mean, you cannot have any sugars. And the other reason it is really, really intense is because you might like, if you're well into the diet and you're rocking it and you cave and eat a sugar, like a chocolate bar or like whatever it is, or like I'm talking about like high sugar, those yeast cells go crazy. And I mean, you're not back at the beginning, but I mean, the detox process, like to get back is really, really intense. So if you are looking at working with your candida overgrowth, there are more gentle ways to do it, and just really watching sugar in your diet. And unfortunately, that will include fructose, so fruit. So cutting out a lot of the natural healthy sugars, or like even forms of fiber as well. Yeah. I know that wasn't super optimistic. It is doable though. It is doable. I like to tell people plan to do it over a longer period of time. And then find some supports for it. It's like quitting smoking. Sugar, I think is as hard as quitting smoking, or harder. Like it's there's some stuff there, right? It's a big topic. The candida is so frustrating because you get pretty far with it. You'll do amazing, and then you you do amazing with it, and then boom, you have a really bad craving or a bad day, and it's really easy to fall off that wagon. And then the other thing that a lot of people choose not to do candida diets because of summer, is because a lot of people like to have, I didn't mention this one, but a lot of people like to have drinks in summer. It's just our lifestyle. I mean, I don't want to say it's our lifestyle, but I know that summer in Alberta specifically is like 10 minutes long. And so people just don't really want to limit themselves in summer. So alcohol is unfortunately like having that glass of wine with your girlfriends or dinner or whatever, like that is boom, you're right back in it. And the other one that I didn't mention, and why this diet does get unfortunately really strict, is that it does limit anything with yeast. So it could be sugar-free, but if it has yeast in it, it is also a no-go, because you're basically trying to starve yeast cells. So you can't be adding yeast into your diet. And I mean, just keep in mind, that's why a lot of people with candida overgrowth love bread. Like that's why, people are like, oh, I'm not I don't care about say chips or sweets, but they're like, just give me bread. That's why, right? Is because it's a double hitter. It's yeast and it's metabolized as sugar. And anyways, yeah. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that you're in Alberta, Canada, right?
where are you at?
I'm in Portland, Oregon, but I mean, I just think it's great how far we are and we're able to connect. And
yeah, no, and that's why, everything that's going on in our world today, I mean, there's definite things that are super unfortunate, but I mean, the accessibility has been really great, and I do have to jump back to your question just to let you know, I realized I wrote it down here because I was like, ooh, this is really important. And then I forgot. So the other thing that creates candida overgrowth, and this is speaking of our current global environment, is sanitizer, hand sanitizer, right? So excessive use of hand sanitizer decreases our microbiome and basically our good bacteria in our body through absorption about 400%. And the candida overgrowth, that typically happens through antibiotics, excess sugar, or when we basically wipe out our natural biome of healthy bacteria that would normally fight off those yeast cells. So thank you very much for everyone, who brought up the candida, and what an absolute awesome topic it was. And it's funny, I didn't even make that connection. So I'm really, really appreciative, because the sanitizer is a huge reason that we're having a candida overgrowth issue now as well. And if you are interested, I talk about that connection in a previous video, the gut health video. And so again, if you are looking into the candida issue and the sanitizer issue, and basically everything that's going on right now, a prebiotic and a probiotic become like super, super, super important. And most people think of yogurt when I say that, and it isn't yogurt. Unfortunately, if it's a really good yogurt, okay. But most of them are actually just like gelatin, sugar, some of them. So keep an eye out for that. But sorry to interrupt you, Sean. I appreciate, I literally wrote down sanitizer to be like, ooh, I forgot about that. But yeah. Lindy, did you have any questions? Can I help you with anything? No, okay. Kathy, what you say you use that stuff so much?
Sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't use the word stuff. That's very inappropriate.
That's okay. That's fine.
I use a hand sanitizer. I'm
Oh,
an
yeah.
educator,
Yes.
and I'm using hand sanitizer multiple times during the day. I mean, I try to wash my hands with soap and water, but lots of times it's, I'm handing out stuff, kids are touching me or whatever, and I'm like, hand sanitizer, and I'm like, oh Lord, it's like a flow of sugar. It seems like it's happening all the time in my classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm my profession, I totally understand. I'm in the same boat as I work in like healthcare. So I'm a manual osteopathic therapist. So I basically touch anything and I have to sanitize again. So I do understand. Just really finding a good like prebiotic, probiotic. And the other thing, especially if you are working with sugar cravings and candida overgrowth and things, fermented foods are your best friend. Really help increase dealing with those sugar cravings. And I mean, if you are going to use, say, kombucha, and the one thing that you have to be mindful of is if you can either make your own or find a really high quality one, because a lot of the ones that are in the store these days are really just glorified like pop. So that's something to be careful of. And store-bought pickles, unfortunately, they don't count anymore either. But if you were to get some like pickles from the farmer's market, But so fermented foods are amazing for leaky gut syndrome and like gut health, which does actually offset the sanitizer issue. So if you are like myself, and I think most people in this world right now using a ton of sanitizer, fermented foods with a pre and probiotic and higher quality are important. That would actually really support you, especially with your sugar cravings. And then I did talk about scraping the tongue. I think you were here for that one. But really scraping the tongue like a couple times a day until you get through it. A lot of yeast is actually carried within our tongue. So that will actually help our sugar cravings and really trying to get that yeast overgrowth out. And, you know, yeah, I mean, sorry, the bacteria of the body is such a fascinating thing. So sanitizer, it's causing some problems. I know if you were to look at the approval, Organic Solutions is a lady I know, and she ships her products. But maybe I'll post her link on my Facebook as well, because sorry, I'll answer that in a second. But I'll post her, maybe her information, because she has a government approved sanitizer that actually doesn't contain as much alcohol. I can't remember how she did it, but it's really not as damaging as some of the other ones. So I will post her link and ask her to send me like a bio of their product. You make your own dill pickles and sauerkraut. Even though they are processed, are they still good? So if you're making them, that's just a bunch of single ingredients going into one container. It's why, like, say for instance, a stir fry can still be a whole food, because the ingredients are all whole foods. So if you're making your own pickles and sauerkraut, you're using single ingredients. So that's absolutely wonderful. Brody. Stop. Sorry. And if anyone here is interested, maybe I could include some like super simple ways. I mean, it sounds like Kathy's got it down pat, but to ferment your own foods, like fermented vegetables, they're delicious, and they take nothing. Like it's just, it's just some it's really vinegar, right? I'm sure. I actually think hers is probably better than mine, because I'm not an expert at that. Like I said, I like to buy things. But yeah, they are the homemade ones, amazing. Farmers market, amazing. Those definitely still count. And yeah, the more you can consume, the faster your cravings will subside, for sure. Oh, and just because I'm a geek, I do know this. The part of our brain that has cravings, so if you are trying to wean yourself off sugar, the part of our brain that is responsible for cravings, did you know you can't read and have a craving at the same time? I found that absolutely fascinating. So like, if you're really wanting something and you're having a really hard time, like I have dish soap in front of me, like picking up and just like reading this label, you physically can't use it's the same center in your brain. So you can actually like get out of a lot of cravings by reading. So I always thought that was like super, super, super cool. But yeah. Nothing like just packing it all in. Hey, I'm sure you guys are like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Yeah. So I've kept you guys like way over time. I apologize if I kind of kept you a bit long. Are we good? Is there any final touches? Yeah, no, okay. So if a lot of this information resonated with you, like I said, starting next Monday, I am running the inflammation course. It is 5 weeks with a bonus 6 session just to get to answers. I do, if this really hit home and you are struggling, a lot of what we talked about today will kind of move into that inflammation course. Should you be interested, that will be on my face, like the link to that's on my Facebook page. And like I said, all my contact is there. You're always welcome to fire me a question. If I don't, if I have to look something up, I'm happy to do that. And yeah, I think I'm going to run my next session, I believe, on either the understanding microbiomes. So that's how basically what we eat become, thank you, Sean. Yes. And that class will either be basically how we eat changes our internal environment through bacteria. And there is another one, but I can't remember what it was. But anyways, like I said, I think this has been probably the funnest session I've done yet. And I'm so thankful that you guys were able to join me. I didn't get emails on the side here. So if I don't have your email, I will not be able to send you the recording. If you would like the recording, I will just put if you search JC Wellness Consulting, you're able to contact me there. That's where the information will be. And then Jennifer Christine Wellness Consulting .com. There's my website. I think it's spelled right. Yeah. So if you want to maybe just copy and paste those couple things. And yeah, it was great to have you guys. And we'll talk soon. All right. Have a good day. Good night.